I'm told that I have Mr. I'll come back. I'll come to you too. Sorry. I have Mr. Yabo being someone on the line, and we'll just have a quick conversation with him, and I'll come back to Pargrave to have his take on Constitution Day, and then we'll move from there to the Alan's resignation matter. So I told you that after months of speculations, the Trade Minister Alan Kojo-Kyerematen has resigned from his position. He's tendered his resignation to the president on Thursday, and since then there have been a lot of talk in both traditional and new media about his resignation in terms of what he intends to do, etc. So we have called up Yabo Abinga-Samoa, who is the former director of communications of the New Patriotic Party, who is also one of the is a member of the Alan campaign team, to tell us more about this latest development. Mr. Yabo Abinga-Samoa, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Pages. Please unmute so that we can hear you, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear
Excellent.
you now. Right.
Okay.
If you can, but first of all, before we continue, can you confirm, are you the spokesperson for the team?
I think until the incoming president sets out in public his structures and his team, it's only fair that we all wait for that period. I can only say that I'm very, very happy at the developments since Thursday. And I think a lot of people are very, very, very happy.
I see. Not many people actually knew that you were very good friends with the Trades Minister to the point where today you're actually speaking for him. How long have you guys been friends?
Moro, don't you know anything about the NPP?
Well,
I've known Mr. Kyerematen since the Protect Day.
I'm asking for those who don't know. They would find out today. I mean, how long you been friends with him?
He's been one of my icons, a mentor since he was working with Improtech in the 1990s. He's a lawyer and I'm also a lawyer. My area of specialty in law is business, in commercial law. I believe in SME development, and Improtech is a forerunner in terms of organized, specific efforts targeted at bringing up SMEs. And then I came into contact with him because I was searching for a loan under a program called FuseMed, which the government had brought. FuseMed was to help small-scale businesses to get on their feet, giving them technical advice as well as financial support, guarantees. And I went to Mr. Kyerematen at Improtech, and then he helped me with that process. And of course, we've been friends since then. We're already in a political family, and since then we've been friends as well. So we go way back.
See, that's quite interesting. So then the next question that arises will be, why has the minister, that's Alan Kyerematen, why has he decided to resign?
I think it's a combination of our needs in total, the party's needs, national need, and his own need, as well as the needs of the current government and the way forward for the government. Clearly, there's a high expectation that Mr. Kyerematen is going to run after the constitutional limit of Nana Addo expires. And to do that, he needs to organize and structure himself. And obviously, the government also requires all the energy, the focus, the strength of everybody involved in the government. And this he has sought to do. He's devoted his entire second term to serving the government. The first and second term, actually. He's devoted his entire energy, resources, efforts to serving the government. And this year, 2023, obviously is the year that the politics ramps up internally before the external politics comes into play in 2024. And the presidency and the government is also at a point where there's a fresh start that needs to be charted, which is how to implement the understandings that we have arrived at with the IMF. Mr. Chematin has been heavily involved in the procedures, the processes for resolving the current situation from the government side. And it is time he moved on to allow the president to renew his team in order to move forward on the final aspects of the IMF process.
Now, was it pushed or he jumped?
Are you giving me an option with either one? If you are pushed or you jump,
well, maybe.
If you are pushed or you jump, you fall. No. It is the most rational decision. And you yourself, when you began, you said that many had been clamoring since the beginning of the year for him to move on. I don't know if you recollect your own opening remarks. And that's why I began by saying that this decision is not entirely Mr. Chematin's alone. It is in response to the beliefs, the needs of the people, the millions of people who believe in him and who think he can take forward the NPP project effectively after Kufuor's foundation, after Nana's building. Is the one who is coming in to then complete the building and furnish it for us to be comfortable. So many people, the question was about timing. So he had to make sure he was there with the government in the difficult times of engaging the IMF, sorting out the future of the country through our relations with the international community, restabilizing our economy, getting a direction in which we'll be moving. He's been there and he's been very loyal to that process. So it's just a timely response to a necessity. The necessity is that he is going to run. It will be incongruous to sit in government and pretend that you can run a campaign and then serve in the government at the same time. You will have divided attention and it will raise questions about your commitment to incumbency issues and all that. So this is the time. There are those who think it's even too late. So there's no question about politics. Politics is about timing, and everybody will have their opinion or idea about which is the best time. And I think in terms of service to the country, in terms of service to the party, in terms of ensuring the best for the NPP which he aspires to lead, now is the time to step aside and enable the president to renew his team in the final charge towards the IMF process, whilst he also begins to organize himself to participate in the legal situation which is coming up. He's contested this thing several times, 3 times actually, against the same opponent, the current president. So everybody knows his credentials. Everybody knows he's run this marathon, and everybody expects him to be part of the process. And now, legally, the president cannot be our candidate anymore. We must have a new leader. His credentials, I believe, have been established solidly. So it is time. He deserves the opportunity to step aside, enable the president to function better, and enable he himself to also set up the means by which he will fight for the nomination.
Now here's the thing. We heard, again, rumors have it that he actually intended to resign in September last year, but was scared or was concerned that he may be tagged as, or he may be described as, or the move may be described as a betrayal of the government, because the economy was at the time in a dire strait, very difficult times, and so he decided to postpone it to today. How true is that he had intentions to do this much earlier?
Moro, I want all of us to ask ourselves a question. Isn't it true that anything that affects Alan Chematin and his position in the government or outside the government is news? you're talking about him intending to resign in September. Would that impact you're talking about, whether he was afraid or the public would have had certain expectations, reflective? Is it reflective of other members of the government? Perhaps not. So it is clear that there's an aura around Mr. Chematin about the succession. There's no doubt about it. So his motives, his intentions, his actions, everything he does and has been doing since he's been part of this government is being timelined by interested observers. So every time he takes a step, this speculation will come, not because it is generalized and because every minister deserves that speculation, but because there's a certain mystique, there's a certain belief, there's a certain understanding that he is a potential leader and that he's in waiting to fill that space so that potentially he can lead us to victory. It is a mental situation, it is a psychological situation within the party and in the nation. It is expected. So there are those who even believe that he should have resigned in January. There are many who are doubtful whether he will even run because he's still in the government. There are many expecting certain things from him so that they can rise up. And I can tell you, since he declared barely, he resigned, stepped out of the government to enable the president renew his team. Since he stepped out of the government barely 48 hours ago, the upsurge on the ground, the support is unbelievable. It has simply, it's phenomenal. Moro, it's phenomenal. The confidence it has instilled, the belief it has restored, the expectations that it has satisfied. That yes, indeed, Mr. Chematin is set up to run for leadership of the New Patriotic Party, and thereafter, when successful, contest for the presidency of the Republic, continuing the traditions of policy making for the benefit of Ghanaians that the NPP has become special for in the minds of the Ghanaian voter.
Now, this is my penultimate question to you. Now, already we've heard people questioning the commitment and loyalty of Alan Chematin to the NPP cause, and their questioning or their reservations is grounded on the fact that Alan has resigned from the party before, citing various reasons, harassment of his supporters, etc. And then now he's resigning, according to his critics, at a very critical time, at a very crucial time, when he, as a member of the economic management team, is expected to join forces with the likes of the vice president and others to fix the economy. He's more interested in becoming president. How do you respond to these criticisms?
Do you recall when initially the government set out to go to the IMF, that Alan came out swinging and helped focus public opinion on the need to go to the IMF and do the right thing? It was a very difficult time for the government, where we had advocated that we were in a position to run our own affairs better than the IMF could do for us or otherwise. But he had gotten to the stage where clearly we didn't need that credibility to show up our international standing. So we declared. Alan went around single-handedly and engaged and got everybody online. Alan has never ever stepped out of line as far as government policy is concerned. In fact, not only that, he has contributed substantially through his expertise as an entrepreneur and the ministry he has arguably headed better than anybody else before him to actually diversify this economy and lay the foundations towards what we all hope for, which is enhanced, accelerated employment. Our biggest problem now as a country, employment. And he's delivering mechanisms and systems for sustainable employment. Now, Anybody who conflates Alan's current stepping down from the government after all the service, the loyal service he has delivered to the people of Ghana through service to His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, a current president of the NPP administration. Through all that, all the service, anybody who seeks to conflate this stepping down with the previous situation about resignation simply wants to attract political attention to themselves, because it doesn't wash. Assuming, without admitting, that even there was a resignation, which there wasn't. I mean, maybe, Moro, if you have 3 minutes, let me take time and try and explain what happened at that time. If you have 3 minutes, should I? Alan, Moro.
I'm here.
Yeah, go
on. Please go ahead.
Then, Alan intimated to the party leadership that his supporters were being harassed and intimidated after the internal contest, and that if the party didn't do anything about it, he would advise himself. Now, before the party hierarchy could act on that matter, somehow it had gotten into the press that Alan had resigned. For whatever reason, whoever was leaking it to the press sought to achieve. Even beyond the thing having landed in the press, after the thing landed in the press, after the thing landed in the press, the party leadership still went ahead and met everybody and resolved the issues to the extent that Alan was the main campaigner with the then candidate, our current president. And since then, Alan has run for the presidency, qualified and run for the presidency in at least 2 primaries since that incident. He has been a cabinet minister on the ticket of our party since that incident. Is anybody saying that Alan hasn't served and paid his dues since he fought for a large part of this party which felt threatened by internal competition? He didn't fight for himself. He fought for his supporters who were being sidelined and harassed. And by standing up for those people, he kept the party together because the party leadership sat and resolved those matters. And the party has then been in a position where we've managed to actually capture power twice and are now poised to capture power again in an unprecedented way if we're able to break the cycle of the 2-term thing. And we believe that Alan has that kind of favor nationwide and internationally to help to break that cycle. So there are 2 entirely different things. Today, he's resigning after loyal service to the party. He's stepping down after loyal service to the party in order to pursue an interest that everybody in the party and the nation knows he will pursue. That's why earlier I said that, why is it that anything to do with Alan attracts attention? It's because everybody knows what Alan is for and stands for and will do in future. And this is the time. Everybody in the party, everybody in Ghana knows that Alan appears with the heir apparent to the NPP leadership and that he is in government and he's being watched and he's preparing himself, and at the right time, it's because he has to run on the record of this government, and he cannot be in the government and sabotage the government. So he has served. He has served loyally. He has served competently. He has helped to lay a foundation for diversification to bring us jobs from the private sector, which is what we need, sustainable jobs. He has delivered. And it is on that delivery that he's going to stand now. He's not going to run a different political party. He's going to ask for the favor of the political party which is currently in government, headed by the president he has served. He has humbly asked the president to enable him step aside so that the president will also have a free hand to continue to renew and consolidate the efforts he's making at this time towards revamping the economy, which is the immediate need. So the circumstances for stepping out, this time are entirely different from the circumstances then. And even then, it's a spin, because when the true story is told, nobody can turn up with a letter that says that he resigned. Challenge those who are talking about resignation and ask them for a copy of the letter. They don't have any such thing. It was a leakage from a request to have a powwow, sit down, and let's resolve issues to keep our party together. And that's what happened. The NPP is solid, the NPP is united, and the NPP will get behind Alan as he gets up and moves forward to run for the leadership of the party.
I had said that the earlier question I asked was going to be my penultimate question, but this is actually going to be my penultimate question, which is, we have already heard persons like the Honorable Hackman Oswajaman, who is, I believe, the chair of the Council of Elders, and also the likes of Nana Akomia, who are asking that one of the things that the NPP can look at, if they really want to stand a very good chance of breaking the 8, is to pair Alan Shermanting and Dr. Mahmoud Bamia for the 2024 elections. What they actually have failed to tell us is who becomes the flag bearer and who becomes a running mate. But conceptually, this whole idea of pairing Dr. Mahmoud Bamia and Alan Kojo Shermanting, is it something that you would even want to consider?
I think we must concede that ours is a democratic party of ideas, and that everybody within that space is entitled to their own opinion. But that opinion is not the legally required approach. To get to the point where one even considers this or otherwise, one needs to see whether it's grounded in a framework. But at the moment, our constitution as a party responds and has responded effectively over the years to these matters, because whenever there is an election, these issues come up, particularly in primaries. At parliamentary level, you will find MPs asking for rules that will protect their seats. I remember earlier on, even during the last primary, before Nana became president, when Alan ran against him. I remember there was a serious groundswell not to even have the Congress, because the assumption was that Nana was going to win. He had been to the Supreme Court, and the court had vindicated him, and that the party didn't even spend money on a primary, and that if Alan were to just not run, then Nana would be the putative leader immediately. It was, sometimes these arguments sound very attractive at the point where they are made, but the structure of the party and the constitution of the party governing these issues does not admit of these things, because it is very, very, very clear. And the president is the act enforcer of this constitution and democracy. I insist, and I always say that the president is our number one Democrat. As for him, he thinks that everybody must be voted for, everything must be voted for. So if at some stage we had 17 aspirants, the party didn't put in place a mechanism for consensus building, that if you have 17, sit in a room and break it down. It said there was going to be a superdelegates conference to whittle the number down to 5, after which the 5 will go for Congress. It didn't say that after whittling it down to 5, you decide otherwise, because Congress is fair. Congress offers the people the opportunity to speak. So as where we are now, I believe that is an opinion that some are developing, but does not have legal basis yet to even table anywhere. There is no formal channel for tabling that kind of situation that some are speaking to.
Okay. All right. Yes, Mr. Yabo Abiansa, my final question to you is that now Alan has resigned. What's next? What's his itinerary? Oh, unfortunately, we've lost Yabo Abing. Asamoah. We'll try and get him back online because we need to know what's next for the Alan Chairman campaign so that we, the media, can follow, and so on and so forth. Now, let me just do this quickly. We're told that Fix the Country movement is holding, yes, as you can see on your screens, the Fix the Country movement is holding a demonstration. They're asking for the Constitution, the 1992 Constitution, to be amended. Let me talk to Henry Kwesibedu briefly, and I'll come back in the house. Henry, how is it going?
Hello, Moro. If you can hear me, this is the northern regional capital of Tamale. And as you can see, organizers or the conveners of the Fix Country have put together a massive demonstration there. And as you can see, they just started from the Jubilee Park here in Tamale, and they are walking through some principal streets of Tamale, and they also go to Savaribu, where the demonstration is expected to end. But what is happening now is that the police is having quite a difficult time bringing the demonstrators under their control because they are not using a specific road. What happens is that they go one way and their leaders turn the other way that they should go. I've been joined by one of the conveners of the county campaigners for a brief conversation here. I've been told that you guys have been here for more than 10 weeks. What have you been doing specifically? Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity again. We've been here in Exile for more than 10 weeks. Okay. But it's about the Constitution. This protest is basically about the Constitution. There are a lot of things that a lot of Ghanaians think needs to be changed in the Constitution. So we came to Tamale to have a dialogue, to have a conversation with our fellow Ghanaians, okay? To also know the kind of problems they have with the Constitution that they think needs to be struck out of the Constitution. We have been speaking with our people, and now you can see the voices of the people. You can see that the people are now understanding what democracy is. That it is a government for the people and by the people. As you were speaking, I heard you say, closing down and stuff like that. Now what we are seeing now is the power of the people speaking. It is not about violence. You know how the people speak. The fact is, protesters are supposed to express their dissatisfaction. But every time we need to have a demonstration, but this has to choose the leader that will be for him or not. I always say that today they are busy, I was busy. Today is a holiday. Today was supposed to be a Constitution Day. It has been marked a holiday. So you can see the roads are there. There are no cars standing. In fact, when we come to Tamale, these are there.
All right. So those were scenes from from Tamale, where the Fix the Country group is demonstrating and protesting. They're asking the government or they're asking the states to do something about the Constitution to amend it. And they've been consistent about that. Now, let me go back and speak to Mr. Yabo Abiyansamoah. We lost him. We actually have him back. So, Mr. Abiyansamoah, my final question to you would be, yes, Alan has resigned. What's next? Hello, Yao. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello. Yes.
Hello? I think we're having some difficulties with the connection with the Zoom link. Would fix that and get Yabo Abiyansamoah back. We need to know what's next for the Alan camp or the Alan campaign now that Alan has resigned. I hope that Yao has some information for us on that so that we, the media, can follow. Because that's what we do. We follow the news. Anyway, so hello? Yabo Abiyansamoah, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I've had tons of messages from some of our viewers who want to know what's next for Alan. He's resigned. We know he wants to pursue his presidential ambition. But is there any itinerary you can share with us?
Mr. Alan John Kojo Martin is going to run a full-blown presidential primary campaign. And he's going to devote his time now to it. And obviously that campaign is to the party because it's a primary. So it will not over impact what the government is doing. He will still be available to support and advise the government behind the scenes, but he's now going to set out and engage the party in order to win the party's favor. He's going to humbly ask the party for its favor as the leader, as the preferred choice for flag bearer. And then once he gets that in 2024, he's going to be leading the charge. So in the coming days, you will hear from he himself, and then the activity, the itinerary, activity outline will be tabled.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you so very much for accepting to talk to us. It's a pleasure.
One last thing on the constitutional agitations. Moro, just one last thing on the constitutional agitations.
Right.
Law is a lived experience, particularly constitutions. So whilst some parts of the constitution may be troublesome in terms of our lived experience, a large part of it has served us well. This is the longest lasting constitution we've had, the fourth Republican Constitution, which has stretched to beyond 30 years. Since independence, we've struggled to sustain constitutions. So there must be something in this constitution that works, but there are portions of it that do not work. So I would prefer an approach that isolates the difficult parts and enables us to develop and build those parts, rather than agitation to throw out the constitution, because a law is lived. If we have a constitution that we don't live by, our own attitudes are poor, no amount of lawmaking will make a difference, because we ourselves must interpret the law we have given ourselves and act and work accordingly. Perhaps it is time we looked closely at our attitude. For example, Article 41, should it be thrown out? The Constitution is also indicting us on Article 41. And Moro, please read Article 41 so Paul Grave can comment on it. Paul Grave will do this job. Yes.
Well, he hasn't begun his law school yet. Oh, wonderful.
Article 41. I know you are more than capable of telling the whole world what the NPP is about.
Right.
So use Article 41. That is telling us what to do as Ghanaians to even deserve this constitution. Are we doing it? So if we throw it away, then we want a libertarian constitution.
All right.
What happens?
All right. All right. I get it. I mean, that's a very, very important point you just made. Yabo Miyasama. So let me come back in-house and pick the thoughts of Mr. Pargrib Washidankwa's the thoughts of Mr. Pargrib Washidankwa. Are we going to break? Okay, so right after the break, Mr. Pargrib Washidankwa would have his take. Stay tuned in. All right, welcome back. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. We've been talking to Mr. Yabo Abinga-Asamoah, who is one of the spokespersons for the Island campaign, and who's been telling us why his boss decided to resign and what he intends to do, and some of the issues that have come up since the resignation of Alan Kojo Chairmanting. I hope that you enjoyed it. Now we're going to be we're coming back in house to continue with that conversation. Now, remember that Mr. Pargrib Washidankwa is actually supposed to have his thoughts on Constitution Day, and then at some point in the conversation, we'd have Professor Edward Brenya, who is a lecturer at the KNUST on political science and history. Will also be joining us to give us his thoughts on the resignation of Alan Chairmanting. And also, I told you that there's a very interesting polls that have been conducted by the Global Info Analytics, whose chief executive officer, Musa Dankwa, is seated right here. He'll be sharing, the details of that polls with us here on Inside Pages. Now, 0244 262 314. 0244 262 314. That's the WhatsApp line. If you have any thoughts you want to share with us, 0244 262 314. Your WhatsApp messages and text messages are welcome on this number. Mr. Pargrib Washidankwa, your thoughts on Constitution Day?
Morning to you and to my seniors and colleagues here. Happy New Year to your viewers.
And happy returns.
It's good to be back on set. This year promises to be a very busy one for government, for the NPP political party, and by extension, I'm sure for the NDC and other smaller political parties.
Carry your own. Don't bring this.
Really, just to congratulate ourselves as a Ghanaian people for upholding the 1992 Constitution. By far, it's been the longest serving. If you look at it from the 1957 Constitution that had the Queen as the head of government, and then you come out to the 1960 Constitution when we finally became a republic, and to 1969, and then you come to 1979, and then you come up to 1992, 93. So for 30 years, we've had this Constitution that has produced 5 significant presidents, from Jerry John Rawlings, blessed memory, may he so rest in peace, to John Ajakum Kufuor, to John Evans Atta Mills, to John Dramani Mahama, and to Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who is not called John. No, I mean,
that was when we had a breakaway from the Johns.
That's where we had a breakaway from the Johns. And then also successfully has been able to hand over power 3 times. So you can see the potency of the Constitution. I do agree that there are some portions of the 1992 Constitution that needs to be relooked at.
Right.
Primarily, if you've had a Constitution that has said for 30 years, that's almost a generation.
True.
And so there arise a new generation with new thinking, new thoughts. And as we are aware, the Constitution is a living organism. And so having practiced some aspects of the Constitution that we believe very well that as society becomes dynamic, we should ensure that the Constitution also becomes dynamic to the needs of the Ghanaian people. I would welcome a lot more deeper conversation into a broadening of the Constitution and how it can reflect to the Ghanaian people. Senior Yawbo being asked that I read Article 41, and so I'll just read the Article 41 of 1992 Constitution that urges the duties on the individual Ghanaian citizens and states that the exercise of rights and freedoms guaranteed in the Constitution are inseparable from the citizens' performance of their duties. And I'm certain that this is in relation to persons that are agitating to come onto it's not everything that you need to have a red beret and a red band on your hand agitating. These are legal issues, these are constitutional issues. You need to come around the table, share your intellectual capacity, and make some credible input.
Right.
Honorable Mutala spoke about
read Article 21 too.
Oh, you want me to read Article 21 as well? I thought your
Special Clause 1, I want you to read so that you can make a very fair.
That's not a problem. Honorable Mutala spoke about the NDPC and spoke about the National Development
read
Plan.
Article 21.
No, but let me make my point.
So that he doesn't so that you don't distract him. Please go ahead.
I will let him read Article 21 himself. He should read Article 21. But really also to state that we as a government have a mid-term and a short-term and a long-term plan that has been derived from the National Development Planning Commission. I have a copy of that document that was presented to the president, and we have that developmental plan that we are going through it to ensure that the Ghanaian country that we have an opportunity to govern is put on the right path. And I mean, no doubt in my mind that the Director General for NDPC, Dr. Kojo Abrampa-Mensah, is well situated, very well in advising the president as it relates to planning and development in this country. So we haven't strayed away from the developmental plan that was set up right up from 1957 till date. And we don't need a reminder of the Seichi Convention that was held. We've seen that plan. There's been a bigger plan as well, which the Ghanaian people and our government is following to ensure that we bring to fruition the promises that we have made to the Ghanaian people.
Sure. All right. Thank you so very much for those insightful thoughts. No, sorry. I need to do this. Now, I want us to, please, Josiah, if we have the president's acceptance letter to Alan Kojo Chairman, let's do that. I want to read that quickly and then speak to Professor Edward Brenya of KNUST so that he can put everything in context. Please do. Thank you very much. Mr. Josiah. Now, here's what the president said in accepting Alan Kojo Chairmanting's resignation. So, President Akufo-Addo accepts Alan Chairmanting's resignation. The President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, on Friday, 6th January 2023, accepted the resignation from office of Mr. Alan Chairmanting as Minister for Trade and Industry. This was after Mr. Chairmanting on Thursday, 5th January, informed the President personally of his decision to resign and subsequently submitted his letter of resignation to him. President Akufo-Addo thanked Mr. Chairmanting for his services to his government and to the country and wished him well in his future endeavors. The President has asked the Minister for Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, to act as caretaker minister at the Ministry of Trade and Industry until a substantive appointment is made. Now, let me speak to Eugene Ahin, Director of Communications, Office of the President. Now, let me speak to Professor Edward Brenya of KNUST. He's a lecturer in politics and history. He also, is very, very well versed in public administration as well. But for today, he's going to be talking to us as a political science lecturer. Professor Brenya, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Pages on Metro Television.
Good morning, Moro, and good morning to the panelists.
Right. Now, let me start from the very end, or the tail end of that acceptance letter where the finance minister has been given the caretaking job, or the caretaker job of that particular ministry, which is the Trade and Industry Ministry, which the Alan Chairmanting has resigned and left vacant. I've had some people raise some very, very serious issues with that, that for a finance minister whose job is on the line, because for the first time we've had more than 89 MPs asking that you be sacked. This same finance minister, here we are, has been given additional responsibilities. Do you find anything? Do you find anything funny, unacceptable about that?
Good morning once again to the able listeners of Metro TV. It is interesting, right? Looking at the letter and seeing that the Honorable Finance Minister is the one who is being asked to serve as a caretaker minister until a substantive one is appointed. The same question came to mind, asking that is it not the same person that many Ghanaians, including several MPs from the ruling government, at a point in time wanted out, that the president insisted that he should stay. But it goes to answer one question. The question that President Akufo-Addo would do whatever it takes to protect Ken Ofori-Atta, and the fact that he sees, as he has indicated in several times, that can remain one of the most, if not the only competent minister in his government, and for that reason, find no fault with what Ken has been doing or is doing, and at the same time, seem to be totally at opposite direction with what Ghanaians and many of the members of parliament from his own government thinks about the performance of the finance minister. For me, it is worrying, and it does not speak well about whether the president indeed listening to Ghanaians or whether he cares about what Ghanaians are worried about.
All right, so now let's go to the more substantive issue, the reason we've called you up, which is the resignation of Alan John Kojo Chairmanting. Did it come to you as a surprise?
Yes and no. Yes, because if you look at Alan Chairmanting, his ambition, that is well known to every Ghanaian that take active part in politics. And also the fact that he needs some level of independence to operate as an independent person vying for that position. It is not, it is not surprising that Alan Chairmanting would eventually resign so that he can focus on what he's doing. On the other side, the question that comes in, as many have said, why Alan at this time, when we're talking about loyalty to the party, to serving the government, why Alan, a cabinet minister at this time, when the the government is struggling, would want to leave the government. People want to talk about issues of loyalty. But by and large, for his independence and for his ability to fulfill his ambition, I don't see this as surprising at all.
Now, what would this really mean to the government of Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo? Because this is Alan Kyerematen we're talking about. He's been around for a long time. He's contested him, at least on 2 occasions. Would you think this is somebody the government will really miss?
To a large extent, I think at this point in time, Alan's resignation might not necessarily make a lot of difference. Of course, Kenneth Friata has been asked to deputize and to take over until a substantive one is appointed on expertise in terms of activities that is being done as a minister by Alan Kyerematen. Of course, the party, the government is going to mix its expertise. But Alan Kyerematen as a person and Akufo-Addo's government as it stands now, I don't think it's going to make any difference. The NPP government is still continuing to rule and govern the way that it wants to govern until it's time for a new leader to be elected.
Now, you know, there's been some talk already about Alan Kyerematen's commitment and loyalty to the party, and the issues has come up about the fact that he once reportedly resigned from the New Patriotic Party, and also why has he decided to resign now at a time when the economy is in some difficulties? His expertise is needed to help fix the economy as a management of the economic, as a member of the economic management team. Sorry about that. And so, you know, some delegates should not vote for him. I mean, do you think these reasons that have been assigned by his critics, mostly, of course, from the NPP, can stand any scrutiny, any intellectual scrutiny?
I think you rightly said the word is about his critics. It depends on who is talking, right? So if you are a critic of Alan Kyerematen, then certainly you want to use that as a base to sort of expose his disloyalty to the government and to the NPP as a political party. But if we're one of his sympathizers who really want to see him independent and to be able to act in a way that will show a level of activism, that will show a level of motivation, then of course you would at this time be clapping and praising Alan Kyerematen for the decision to resign. Bear in mind that between the 2 leading aspirants, we don't know who else may emerge with time. But for now, the name that is popping up is the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and Honorable Alan Kyerematen. Between these 2 leading aspirants, who one of them is likely to emerge as the flag bearer, whoever does emerge will have a very big task of dissociating himself from the current struggling economy led by the Akufo-Addo's government. So I think that on one hand, it is going to be more easier for Alan Kyerematen at a point in time to say, well, I didn't agree with what was going on, that is why I left. Even though it might sound very difficult for him to even make that argument to the independent voter. But it does give him a leverage to tell that I left because I didn't agree. I left because I wanted to pursue a new cause that I was passionate about. It would be very difficult for Alan Kyerematen to make the same argument if he stayed with the government till the term of the government. So that, to his sympathizers and supporters, will think that it's a right decision to take, at least as it has to do with showing to Ghanaians that I'm going to be a different man. I'm going to champion a different agenda from the struggling agenda that Akufo-Addo is currently dealing with. On the other hand, as I said, yes, loyalty. His critics are saying, yes, you've been part of this government. Whatever the government is in now, you are part of it because you are part of the economic management team. So if there was anything, it is only proper that you say to make sure that things get better before you leave. You don't leave in the middle when the country is still struggling. But ultimately, whatever argument is being made will depend on who is speaking and the targeted audience.
Now, does the fact that Alan has resigned, I mean, the only person who's been busily campaigning is Kennedy Japan. He is not a member of the executive, so he's a free man, he's a businessman, he's campaigning. Now Alan has resigned. Of course, we know that Alan and Dr. Bawumia are the front runners, as a lot of people would tell you or would argue. Do you think that this resignation gives Alan some slight edge over Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the two who are seen as the front runners?
Yes and no. You see, Alan in government is restricted by orders issued by the president. Bear in mind, the president at a point in time had ordered his appointees not to be engaged in active politics while they remain appointees. The constitution of the party that requires that if you want to chart that path, that you should resign. Alan and the Alan that Ghanaians has come to know is seen to be a law-abiding individual who will not want to do things against the dictates of the president. So, of course, Alan, no longer a member of Akufo-Addo's government, gives him a leverage to go out openly and campaign as an independent man. But on the question of whether it does give him leverage over Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, it is questionable because Bawumia, as the vice president, will still have the power of incumbency. Bawumia travels, and because he travels as the vice president, he's going to command the respect and sort of dedication of many of the appointees, the regional minister, even people that are party official, the regional chairman, national chairman, and others. He comes in as a vice president. As a vice president of a ruling party, when he visits your region, district, or whatever, party rules require that you go with the vice president. Whether or not you support what the vice president is championing, he comes in as a vice president. And therefore, the incumbency's privilege allow the vice president to expose himself more to a lot of some of these delegates. And bear in mind that politics is about issues of psyche, right? Psychologically, people see a lot of these big men, big women around the vice president, which to a large extent might affect their thinking. I mean, I'm talking about the delegates. Their thinking when it comes to choosing who becomes the flag bearer. But on the other side, it does keep Bawumia in a very tight corner on how, if elected as the flag bearer, he can appeal to the independent voters, the other people who are not his supporters, that he can champion a different path apart from what he was or he's currently linked to, that he's going to do anything different from what the NPP, current Akufo-Addo's government, is doing. So yes, Alan may have some level of independence, but then it does not, I don't think that independence necessarily will give him an edge over the vice president, as it has to do with the selection of a flag bearer.
All right, Prof. I want to thank you so very much for accepting to talk to us. Now, Professor Edward Brenya is a lecturer in political science and history. That's at KNUST, and he's given us his analysis on the internal context within the NPP on the back of the resignation of Alan Kojo Kyerematen from the government to pursue his presidential ambition.